So good morning, Dr Julia Grosse. It's an absolute pleasure to speak to you this morning, following on from a very engaging assembly with pupils at Rosedale House, part of the STEAM Perse Foundation. So thank you firstly for talking to them, but I'd like to get really behind the person who was giving that talk, because you clearly are a bit of a sustainability guru. So
that's high praise indeed.
So what's the journey? How did you arrive where you're at the moment?
Well, it's lovely to be here. It was lovely to meet all your children in the assembly this morning. So I started out as a zoologist, so I did a degree in zoology and a PhD in zoology, worked in that field for a little while. Then went off to live in the States for a bit, lived there working in the zoology field. And then I had lots of time off to have my children. And when I went back to work as a science communicator. So I worked at Cambridge Science Centre for many years. And the idea behind that was to try and make science understandable for children and grown-ups of all ages. So we went around the local area, we travel around East Anglia doing outreach in schools, and we taught kids about subjects ranging from astrophysics to zoology. We did all sorts of things with them.
So what were the biggest challenges when you were working at the sort of science centre? Because presumably you'll have some kids who are all over. I heard that in the assembly this morning. There's clearly some of those children who are passionate about this and know an awful lot, and there are others who are just learning. So how do you manage that differentiation?
Yeah, I think it is a really good question, and there is always an expert in the audience, and that expert might be a 9-year-old, or it might be the professor of physics, in Cambridge. And actually, so the way we got around it at the Science Centre was really by doing. So everything was practical. All the exhibits that we used were hands-on. And when we did a show or a talk, we always did visual stuff. We had experiments going on. We got the kids to participate, and just trying to explain things in a way that makes them remember it.
A bit like those Christmas science events.
Yes, exactly. So you can explain something really complicated like Newton's laws of motion with a hoverboard, and that's what we used to do at the Science Centre, and that's what made me think of the professor of physics, because I was doing that show one day explaining Newton's laws to the audience, and this man came up to me at the end and he said, "I'm going to try that on my physics students." And I was thinking he taught in a school, and no, he was a professor at the University of Cambridge, and he said they all come to the department, with their A stars, but they've forgotten the basics because they've learned all the complicated stuff. And sometimes actually going back to basics is what you need. And just teaching that in a memorable way and an accessible way, and keeping things simple, people remember it better.
So you're a teacher?
No, I'm not a qualified teacher.
But it's interesting, isn't it? When the line is blurred. I mean, this idea of communicating, because I think the best teaching is through effective communication. That's what it's about, isn't it? Because if you can communicate it, they can learn, and you can inspire them to want to learn more. You
need to find the way in. You need to find what's going to engage a particular audience, and it nearly always is doing something rather than just
the hands-on
people standing there.
You don't need a lecture.
Chatting. No, no. I mean, lectures have their places, but
I know.
Who remembers the lecture they did in year 2 physiology? I don't.
So I think what you're doing sounds really, really exciting and interesting, and my goodness, very, very topical. But you're working out of a quite extraordinary place, aren't you? If we're talking about being inspired every day.
Yes. So I work at somewhere called Cambridge Conservation Initiative, which is it's a partnership between the University of Cambridge's Conservation Research Institute and 9 other organisations, which are a mixture of charities, so the RSPB, for instance, and other NGOs. One of our partners is the United Nations Environment Programme, Wildlife Conservation Monitoring Centre. See, even I can't remember it. We have a lot of acronyms where I work. UNEP WCMC, we call them for short. But there are 9 organisations who work all over the world. So Fauna and Flora International work a lot in Southeast Asia, and we've got an organisation called Traffic, which monitors wildlife trafficking all over the world. We've got the RSPB, who people are probably familiar with, and you might know about the Big Garden Bird Watch. That's something that lots of families get involved in. You might think they only work in the UK, but actually they work internationally as well, and there are others. So yes, we are based in the David Attenborough building, which is on the new museum site where the Museum of Zoology is in Cambridge.
And the great man visits, doesn't he?
Sorry,
the great man visits.
He does, yes. If you look on our website, you will find a photo of David Attenborough abseiling down our green wall. So yeah, he's
when he was a mere 90, I suppose.
Yes, he was a mere 90 at the time. So yes, he does come and visit sometimes, and he will be coming to see us for an event we've got coming up in April, which we'll talk about later, I think. So yeah, it's an amazing place to work. It's really unique partnership to have all these organisations who work in conservation in the same building, sharing resources. And the building was redesigned about 5 years ago. So it's a 1960s building that used to house some of the university departments, metallurgy, materials science, and it was a complete rabbit warren of old labs and teaching rooms and offices piled up with stacks of paper, and it was leaking and cold and impossible to heat. And so it was completely redesigned by architects to be a sustainable hub for conservationists, and it is now a really lovely, light, airy building to work in. There are lots of communal spaces, so all of the organisations have their own office space, but they all share other resources like meeting rooms, common rooms. There are lots of open spaces. So to get to the printer, you have to leave your office and go and walk across the atrium. So people are constantly bumping into each other, and it really encourages them to work in partnership so that we're not doubling up on work, because there's a lot of conservation to be done, and the more people talk to each other and get together and work on things in partnership, the more effective it becomes.
And the more creative, I should imagine, as well.
Yeah, and some really, some amazing partnerships come out of conversations that I had just
over
a couple of coffee.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so the building's a really great place to work. Yeah,
it must be really inspiring, actually.
It is, yeah, it is, and it looks from the outside quite austere and 1960s and concrete, but actually it's really light and airy inside. The architects did an amazing job on it, and it's made to be so highly sustainable. We're trying to talk the talk, walk the walk. It's no good us just sitting there saying look after everything if we don't do it ourselves. So
exactly, but of course the general public has an opportunity to visit the David Attenborough building on Saturday the 25th of April.
Yes, they do. So we're partnering up with the Smithsonian in Washington, and there are actually events being held around the world. So there is an event called Earth Optimism. It was started by the Smithsonian about 10 years ago, I believe. And the idea is to just sort of change the narrative around the environment and conservation, stop it being all doom and gloom, because actually it's not all doom and gloom. There are lots of good news stories out there. It's just that they tend not to be the ones that get publicised. And we don't want people to feel apathetic and feel like there's nothing they can do, because that's not true. There is something that everyone can do to help the environment, and it can be something really small or something much larger. People can do all the simple things that you all know about, turn the tap off when you're brushing your teeth, recycle, think a bit more about the food you buy, try not to buy things wrapped in plastic. But there are lots of other things we can do. And so at our Earth Optimism event, the day's got two parts. We've got a programme of speakers who are, and we've called it the Stories of Hope. So we've got speakers from lots of our partner organisations, but also from all over the world, not flown in, I hasten to add. They're people who are going to be here anyway. So we've got speakers ranging from a group of young people who work for a part of an organisation called Action for Conservation, and they've got a restoration project running in the Brecon Beacons, so they're coming to talk to us. We've got a local one of the our stalls at our Solutions Fair is going to be a group of local school children who run a school's eco council. So we've got lots of young people coming. Bird Girl, some people may have heard of, Maya Rose Craig. She's been in the news quite a lot lately. She's just been awarded a PhD from the University of Bristol, and she's only 17, and she's been awarded that for her work in trying to involve children from inner cities and ethnic minorities more in conservation. I'm just gonna...
So Bristol seems to be a bit of a a hub at the moment, doesn't it?
It does,
isn't our friend Greta visiting Bristol?
She is. She's actually going on the school strike in Bristol today with Bird Girl, Maya Rose.
Okay, yes. So she's going to be there.
Yes, she is going to be there, and she's going to be one of our speakers, and she's going to be talking about how she tries to encourage young people to get more interested in the world around them, in the natural world. She's started a whole series of youth bird watching camps, which is just amazing for someone so young. So you don't have to be a scientist.
And that's kind of the mem, if you like, around all of this, that we're hearing young people stepping forward and young people having a voice, and Bird Girl actually making a very real difference on the ground. I mean, I think it's interesting that we've covered in this conversation David Attenborough. How old is he? 93, 94?
Yes, 93.
And we've got Greta and Bird Girl who are in their mid to late teens. And this is an age blind issue, isn't it? Sustainability.
Absolutely.
It's not about how old you are. No. It's how you're thinking and how you change your thinking.
And everybody can make a difference. Everyone can do something, and that's the thinking behind the Earth Optimism Day. So we've got that program of amazing talks. We've got the famous faces. We've got Steve Backshall's also coming, who does the Deadly 60 series on BBC, which you might have seen. David Attenborough is going to be coming to speak, but then we've also got the working conservationists. And then the other part of the day is a bit more local based. So we've got lots of local companies, local wildlife trusts, local organisations who work in the environment and with conservation, and they're all coming in to just give people ideas of changes they can make in their everyday lives that are going to make a difference to nature and how to live more sustainably.
And what I feel is really positive and hopeful about this, and it's sort of a bit tautologist really, as it's an optimism day, but as you say, this sort of eco-anxiety, it's this cloak of despair that people are wearing, woe, 2030, it's all going to be over. No, it's not. Not if we think differently, if we change the way we are, the way we do things. And I think you were commenting outside of this podcast about if we had 3%, research shows you 3% of a population wanting something, you can change.
It tends to make politicians sit up and take notice, and things do change. And actually I think it was somebody asked Chris Packham recently if he was optimistic, and he said, well, yes, I am, because humans have never failed to rise to a challenge.
It's true.
And things might feel like they're all bad, but they really aren't, and we do have the tools to fix things. We just need the momentum behind it, and I think that's really building, actually.
I think it is. I think it's building from the bottom, which is always the best. As a student of history, the best revolutions always come from below.
Yeah.
So on that revolutionary note, or evolutionary, I'd like to thank you very much, Julia, for firstly speaking to the children this morning, but also for sharing your life experiences and your perspective on how there is hope for the future. And if you're free on Saturday, the 25th of April, please do attend this wonderful event at the David Attenborough building. So thank you very much.
Look us up, Earth Optimism, and it's all free to attend.
Thank you very much, Julia.
Thanks very much for having me.